I want to welcome you to MUS this evening as we pay tribute to Bob Loeb. Bob served the school as a longtime member of the Board of Trustees and was a diligent steward promoting the welfare of MUS, especially during his tenure as chairman of the board. We're honored to have with us Bob and his wife Mary, along with family and friends, trustees and former trustees. The Chairman Portrait Series was established to pay tribute to the school leaders who contributed to and sustained the tradition of excellence at MUS. Individuals whose leadership, loyalty, and commitment to excellence have made MUS what it is today. Our collection includes portraits of the previous 7 board chairmen: Alexander W. Welford Sr., class of '30, Robert G. Snowden, Roy Bell Jr., Buddy Morrison, Kent Wunderlich, Ben Adams, and Tro Gillespie. In my tenure, in my short time here at MUS, I've quickly learned the importance of the board and especially the teamwork that goes with working with the board chair, and in my case, Sam Graham. And the person who can tell you the most about Bob's contributions to the school was the headmaster during his chairman, our headmaster emeritus, Mr. Ellis Hagley. Ellis.
Thank you, Pete, Mr. Graham, Bob, and friends of the school and friends of Bob Loeb, and those aren't mutually exclusive. Back in 1973, Bob Loeb was a senior here at MUS. It was the year of American Graffiti, The Godfather, Don McLean's American Pie, and it was also the year of the most audacious speech ever delivered in Hyde Chapel by a student, the infamous but certainly memorable Andy Baker speech. In Bob's senior year, the football team went 8-3 with a win over Christian Brothers and a victory in the Little Liberty Bowl. The basketball team had a record-breaking 27-2 season. Most wins, most consecutive wins, fewest losses ever in MUS basketball history. They had wins over Whitehaven, Christian Brothers, McCallie, Germantown, multiple wins over White Station and Raleigh, Egypt. Using that legendary Coach Peters 1-3-1 zone defense, which the yearbook described that year as, quote, coordinated as a machine but as adaptable as an organism, end quote. I like that because I wrote it. That year they earned a district championship. And Bob Loeb, number 54 in your program, number 1 in our hearts this evening, was named most valuable player in the district tournament. Jim Varner reminisced, quote, Bob was recruited out of the lunchtime basketball crowd by Coach Peters in the 10th grade. He had never been on an organized basketball team before suiting up for the B team that season. Fast forward to his senior season, MVP of a very competitive district tournament. Pretty heady stuff, end quote. From lunch bucket pickup basketball all the way to the Sports Divider full-page picture of Bob Loeb with a short-range jump shot. I don't think we shoot those anymore, the short-range jump shots. Jim Varner, Tommy Peters, Charles Ivins, Stuart Collier, Beasley, Welford, and Bob Loeb. Remember them well. A great team, And that entire 73 class, still close, some here today, a great class that has generously supported the school year after year in disproportionate generosity to its class size. Cecil Humphreys wrote, quote, "Bob and I first became friends in 7th grade at MUS. It didn't take long to see that Bob was very smart, funny, and a good athlete. He also had more than a little of the iconoclast in him. In short, he had all the makings of a popular guy, someone you wanted to be friends with. Those same characteristics made Bob a natural leader," end quote. Well, Bob chose SMU, majored in history, would later return to earn an MBA there. Cecil, who also matriculated there, added, quote, "In spite of the total freedom presented to freshmen in college, the lessons of MUS followed us. The first week of school on a Monday night, dorm mates came to our room asking if we wanted to go out and get a beer. We got a few strange looks when we responded that it was a school night and we needed to study," end quote. I'm sure Bob kept that same commitment to his academic studies throughout college. When he returned to Memphis, Bob and brother Lou had a fling with a restaurant bar concept, Bob calls it a saloon, at the corner of Park Avenue and, would you believe it, Loeb Street. And he would later open a second in the Memphis State area. But all the while, his fourth-generation family business, originally comprising a laundry enterprise, barbecue shops, convenience stores, and real estate, would call him and he would answer. You see, as a child, one of 9 to Bill and Mimi Loeb, he had already worked as an unpaid employee in the marketing division of the Loeb business. Every Thursday after school, he, along with his 8 siblings, were photographed for page 2 advertisements in the Commercial Appeal and the Memphis Press Scimitar. As the years passed, the family business evolved and grew into its present iteration. Investment, development, management of more than 100 properties ranging from retail and office to industrial and multifamily sites. Business has been good. Most people in Memphis now know Bob best, I suppose, as the tenacious visionary behind the revitalization of Overton Square. MUS students know him for bringing Park Place across the street back to life and securing a Five Guys franchise for them. For his transformational leadership in the city, he was named Memphian of the Year by Memphis Magazine and inducted into the Society of Entrepreneurs. Active in the community, he has served as a board member at Memphis College of Art, Playhouse on the Square, and youth villages. St. Mary's Episcopal School knows Bob as a board member and chair of a very successful $26 million For Girls for Life for Generations capital campaign. And PDS knows him as its Distinguished Alumnus of the Year in 2015. Now at MUS, we've known Bob for many years as a wonderfully generous student, parent, and as a trustee for 18 years from 1999 to 2017. He was a significant member of the steering committees of both the Doors to New Opportunities campaign and the Multi-Sports Stadium campaign, the successful completions of which transformed the physical facilities of this campus. Bob was a founding member of the D. Eugene Thorne Society, its president from 1998 to 2000. He's a member of the Ross M. Lynn Society and the Crest and Cornerstone Society, and he was recognized as our Alumnus of the Year in 2014. Of course, from my point of view, one of his most substantial contributions to MUS was introducing us indirectly but directly in 2003 to Willie Hollinger, now our superb Director of Facilities. Now, we gather this evening, however, to honor him as the school's chairman of the board from 2008 to 2013, our 8th board chairman. Alec Welford, Bobby Snowden, Roy Bell, Buddy Morrison, Kent Wunderlich, Ben Adams, Tro Gillespie, and Bob Loeb. Under his leadership as chairman, the board developed a strategic plan, reviewed and fine-tuned the school's mission statement and philosophy. The field house and the Thornfield baseball grandstands were constructed. Always exceptionally generous whenever the school called on him to support bricks and mortar, Bob has also been exceptionally generous to the school's academic program. In 2003, he established the Loeb Endowment for Academic Support, the income of which is used by the academic dean to develop and fund programs that provide athletic support. Now, as headmaster, during his years as chairman, I had the good pleasure of working with Bob and getting to know him and appreciate him personally and professionally. And I would describe his personality and management style as strength under control. He was always unpretentious and true, a man of unmitigated integrity. There was never any affectation, always the self-discipline of a man who knew who he was and who wanted the very best for MUS. Bob has many God-given gifts, and I saw them. I saw his gift of leadership, his ability to stand before people and call them with care and diligence to accomplish goals. I saw his gift of administration, his ability to steer a group toward the achievement of goals by planning, organizing, and supervising. I saw many times his gift of giving, his willingness to share his material resources with liberality and cheerfulness without thought of return. I saw his gift of perseverance. In a Memphis Magazine article in 2014, his brother Lou commented, quote, "He worked on the acquisition and development of Overton Square for almost 15 years and went to countless public and private meetings to convince the community that we not only had the best intentions, but that with their blessing, cooperation, and patience, we could deliver something they would be very pleased with," end quote. There's an old American proverb that says, "A determined man can do more with a rusty monkey wrench than a lot of people can do with a machine shop." I saw his gift of encouragement, his ability to lift up, to console, to build me up, to build up others. Longtime friend Cecil Humphreys wrote, quote, "Over the last 50 years, I have seen that underlying the still smart and still funny popular guy is a loyal and caring friend. I remember that when my mom died a few years ago, folks came to the funeral home, attended the funeral, sent notes and such, Bob included. But Bob also called a few days later. It was a cold December day, and suggested we take a walk, just to talk if I wanted, or just to take a quiet walk with a friend. Interactions with Bob are often, on the surface, full of the sarcastic bantering that guys do. But I know that there is a loyal, caring heart underneath all that. And I remember that walk on a cold December day, end quote. What he has done and what he continues to do for MUS springs from a genuine love for the school and a deep appreciation of his experience here. He understands that some of the better parts of his character were shaped and sharpened at 6191 Park Avenue in the classrooms and on the hardwood floor of the Todd Snowden Gymnasium. His predecessor as chairman of the board, Tro Gillespie, wrote, quote, "Many of us who share his passion for the school have referred to the MUS experience as, quote, a school for a lifetime," end quote. And Bob exemplified his passion in every endeavor he undertook. His extraordinary leadership qualities, coupled with a savvy business acumen and strategic vision, were cornerstones of his tenure as chairman. He was always engaged and shared special relationships with the administration, the entire Board of Trustees, students, faculty, alumni. And no relationship was more important than the one he had with Ellis Hagewood. Bob's term as board chair, Tro added, elevated the school to new heights of achievement, and all of this occurred while he was executing a dynamic strategy to redefine Overton Square as the heart of the Midtown community, and while he dealt with other corporate projects under the Loeb Properties umbrella. Tro also said, "I think that leaving the school in better shape than you found it has been the foremost fundamental goal of every board chair who have served, and there's no question that Bob achieved that goal, all the while just being a fun person to work with and inspiring all who were part of his team." Bob was a transformative leader for whom all of us owls are grateful, end quote. I believe that all of us who love the school owe Bob Loeb a great debt of gratitude for his leadership as chairman of the board, his honesty, his ability, his commitment, his patience, his wisdom, and his humility. All of these characteristics conspired to make him an effective and unselfish leader. His obvious affection for the school, his belief in the good, and his sense of personal responsibility inspired and encouraged all of us. There's a suitable place now waiting in the Loeb boardroom for his portrait to hang amidst the pantheon of illustrious board chairmen who went before him. Bob, we will always be grateful for you, and we will never forget what you mean to all of us who love MUS. Thank you.
Last time I shared a podium with Ellis, my speech was longer than his, and I promise not to make that mistake again tonight. As Ellis said, Bob's service to the board left a big mark. And Bob, Mary, and Clementine, we're honored to be here with you tonight. Clementine, I know you want to get home and go do your 7th grade homework for St. Mary's, but just give us a minute. When Bob did ultimately retire from our board, I was asked to say a few words to the board, and the words that came to me that Ellis has already touched on, really, if you think about it, just look up here. I was looking up there as Ellis was talking and thinking about Bob. And these words are very important in our culture in Memphis University School. They're there for a reason. They are the yardstick by which students and alumni are measured. Truth and honor, service, respect, humility, scholarship, involvement, accountability. I'm sure you can. I can think of very specific moments where my life has intersected with Bob. And I know that we have measured each other on these standards. And I can say from my perspective, I'm honored to always know that Bob has lived up to those standards. And I have been proud to know him. As many of you would say, as he was an advisor to Ellis during his role as board chair, what you may not know is that when you're in that seat, there's not a whole lot of people you can call, but you can call folks who've been in that chair before. And Bob has been a very important behind-the-scene advisor to me. I've called him on the strangest things. Did this ever happen to you? I've done the same with Tro and Kent and Ben and others who've been in that chair. It's been very, very comforting to know that you've been there, particularly right before me in that regard. It has been mentioned that Bob holds the distinction of being a member of the second most outstanding class in Memphis University School of History. Class of 73 was outstanding, and not everybody could be in the class of 1980, so we can't hold that against him. I continue to learn from Bob and oftentimes say, I hope one day I can do that. Bob, I can't remember if this was right before you stepped down off the board or right before, but I remember you're saying, I'm just going to go hike the El Camino de Santiago. Who does that? And Bob did. He just needed some time to decompress and started in the Pyrenees and went all across northern Spain and ended up in Santiago. And Bob, those are things that you do that are somewhat off the beaten path, just like the El Camino. But that's one of the things we really admire about you, is that you don't take the road traveled as often as the masses. So in the years ahead, when the students from the class of 2073 walk by this portrait, I hope they see your adventuresome and your service-oriented spirit. I hope that comes through, and I hope they say, I wish I could have known Mr. Loeb. But on behalf of all of us here today, I'm proud to say that we do know you, and you've been our faithful friend and leader. And we thank you for the years of service to this school and for being with us all these years. I do want to take a moment to share with you the fact that the portrait that's about to be unveiled is by a very well-known Memphis artist, Mark Shea. Besides being a renowned artist, Mark also happens to have the distinction of being Bob's cousin. Mark, we're honored you're here with us today. Would you please just let everybody know so they can afterwards come talk with you? Mark worked as an architect for 11 years prior to becoming a full-time portrait artist in 1990. And his many commissions have included prominent Memphians and their families, including the portrait of former MES board chair Buddy Morrison, which we've admired all these years, and you can see hanging in the Loeb conference room. I was talking with Mark before that about what a wonderful portrait that has been all these years, and he goes, well, I actually hope I've improved since then. In a very humble way. Mark, we're delighted to have a second portrait by you of a board chair. So Bob, will you please come up here and join me? With gratitude for our 8th chairman of the Board of Trustees of Memphis University School, I'm pleased to present the portrait of Robert E. Loeb.
Wow, I'm a little bit blown away by those comments. Pete, Ellis, Sam, thank you. I was prepared for much less, and I appreciate your kind comments. MUS has meant so much to me and my family, and will be forever grateful. And I appreciate all of y'all coming out here today to celebrate this special occasion. I want to give some special thanks and share some memories. But first, I want to give a little background on who I was at MUS to illustrate how much of an impact MUS had on my life. As Ellis said, I was one of 9 children, and my poor mom, I think we may have gotten the best of her. She had, in 121 months, she had 8 children, and she was a busy lady, and she didn't get much help from my father, and so she was trying to raise his family pretty much by herself. We were Catholic. She was Catholic, and she was trying to raise us as Catholics. And as Mark can tell you, Catholic services where Mass was spoken in Latin, and the priest had his back to you, and you really didn't learn a whole lot about spiritual, religious matters. And so I really didn't hold a Bible till I was a 3rd grader at PDS, and they did the best they could. But by the time I got to MUS as a 7th grader, I'd have to say I was a pretty feral kid, and I had incidences I'm not proud of, but I'll share just to show what MUS started with. I had incidences with the Honor Council and the Student Council my 7th grade year. And the Student Council episode is memorable. I rode the bus to school, and on the way home, Willie had his hands full with just trying to keep the bus on the road with all these kids. And one of my classmates, Montgomery Martin, had a beer in his backpack. An upperclassman had made him bring this beer to school, but hadn't taken it from him, so there it is in his backpack. And being a kid with an inquiring mind, I'm curious what that is, and popped the top on it. And Montgomery and I each had a sip, and I guess hot beer is an acquired taste, because we really didn't care for it too much. And we were coming to a stop, and there was a kid getting off the bus, and we fired the beer at him and hit him in the leg. And a couple of days later, I get called to the student council, and there's this room with U-shape. Booster, were you a student councilor our 7th? I'm sitting in this room, and Charlie Chaplot was the student body president, and there's window behind him. It's a bright day. It's like spotlight in my eyes. And they said, Charlie says, "Bob, can you tell us what happened on so-and-so afternoon?" And I kind of sat there for a minute, and I'm petrified. And I said, "Well, we were smoking cigarettes." And the whole room kind of busted up laughing. It was, we had, I guess, multiple offenses, and we were awarded a couple of day holiday, and over a period of time, I had one offense with each of those entities my 7th grade year, and MUS taught me a lot about personal responsibility. There were people, special people, that really made an impression on you. And early on, you got to start with Colonel Lynn. The man was just so dignified. He was a gentleman, but you could tell he was a powerful guy, and you didn't want to be on his wrong side. And he never addressed me about my 7th grade issues, and we had a good relationship. Coach Thorne was, you didn't take a rocket scientist to know you didn't want to trifle with him. And so I learned to control my behavior a little more with Coach Thorne around. Coach Peters probably had the most influence on me of anybody. I wanted to have this event here just so those of you who hadn't seen it could enjoy this new facility, and he was so influential in my life. An early episode with Coach Peters, I was a football player in the 8th grade. And 8th grade, 9th graders are playing against each other in practice, and I went against David Goodwin on both sides, and David Goodwin was clearly the best athlete on the field, but Coach Powell had him playing line, and I'm lining up opposite him, and Goodwin was a Golden Gloves boxer. And in football, you're not supposed to punch people, so Goodwin used his forearms, and he would just box with me. And this one time, he takes off my helmet and ripped my septum, broke my nose, and Coach Powell just sent me to the locker room, Loeb, get your mother to come pick you up. And so I'm walking by, and yeah, that's the way it was done back then. And I'm walking by, and Coach Peters is in a folding chair sitting there, and he goes, and I'm not very good on imitations, but I remember his words were, Loeb, I can't say much about you, but you're a mighty colorful ball player. That's just blood all over this white practice jersey. But, God, there were so many just legendary teachers that had so much impact on my life, and there were a lot of teachers that I had a lot of fun with. Mr. Mootsie, we had fun, didn't we? Alec Welford, did you teach before you went to law school or afterwards? Yeah. Well, that was educational for both of us. And that was, I'm just so grateful for all of the teachers, coaches who were so influential in my life. I want to say a few words about board service because that was really the honor of my civic career. I probably first heard about board service from Jim Varner. He was making a capital campaign call on me at my house on Walnut Grove, and he said something about my name being on a short list, and I just couldn't believe it, and just to be on the list. And so I, ultimately was asked to serve on the board and come to the first board meeting. Ben Adams is chairing, and God, I was nervous. I wanted important people. I wanted to not do anything silly. And we were going through there was a culture of personal responsibility at MUS, and this balancing act of kids have fun. Some of our peer schools had an authoritarian rule where they would drug test, and the school tried to take responsibility for these kids, and we're trying to impart it on the kids themselves, and that's complicated stuff. And so this is my first board meeting, and I'm trying to be a serious actor, and Ben's trying to get a dialogue going with the board about, remember how it was, and nobody's saying a word, and Ben goes, hey, Bob, don't you remember those parties at your house? Busted me right there. So fast forward 15 well, 12 years, and Tro asked me out for a drink after a board meeting, and I go with him, and we're chatting it up, and he says something about serving as board chair, and once again I was just really taken aback. I couldn't really believe it, but what an honor, and God, I would like to have been a fly on the wall to hear Tro telling Ellis about that. I'm supposed to come in and provide support and assistance to Ellis, and now he's got to provide it for me too. But Ellis, I really valued our time together. Tro told me this, that when issues come up, and when you have over 600 kids on a campus, issues come up, and when they come up, Ellis was always on top of it, and he would have a solution for it. And Ellis, thank you. You ran this school just flawlessly. I can tell you that in my term as chairman, I had less than a half a dozen times disgruntled parents called me to complain about something. And that's just amazing over a 5-year period of time with that many people, that many moving parts, and no complaints. So Ellis, thank you for an amazing job. And I worked with so many passionate trustees. It was a pleasure, and it made my job easy. And then as Jackson was approaching his senior year, and I knew that I would be moving on, Sam, thank you for taking the handoff. You've done just such an amazing job, and I knew Tro was chair of the trustee committee, and I recommended you. I'd seen you in leadership at Independent Presbyterian, an elder and chair. I believe you led the transition team after Sartell, and I, in full disclosure, told you I thought that there would be a transition under your tenure, and you just handled that so amazingly well, and for everybody, for the Hayewoods, for the school, for the board, and kudos to you and congratulations on the coach following you up. Jim's going to do a great job. Pete, thank you for what you're doing now, and I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and what an honor. Go Owls.